Yay.
Spooky!
Yay. We're back.
Yay! Hello, everyone.
Hello, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy. And this is
This
Girls
is
Gone
Girls Gone
Spooky.
Spooky. And y'all are in for a treat because
Yeah.
it's a spooky story day. Pew, pew,
Yay!
pew, pew.
These are some of my
So,
favorites. I just love
same.
these.
They're so fun, they're so spooky, and you just get to like suspend belief, like even
Yeah.
more than we already do.
Yeah. We do
um,
push the
we do quite a
boundaries.
bit. We do quite a bit. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one because of Amy's story, because she left it on such a cliffhanger and now I'm like
I
dying to know what
know.
happened.
Yeah, I know. Should we
Um
jump in? Or do you have
yeah,
anything to
the
say?
only thing I was gonna say is if anyone's like, what holiday is it? Who's not from
Oh.
the US,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is our technically Thanksgiving
Yeah.
episode.
Hmm.
So US Thanksgiving. So
Yes.
feast your scary little souls on this.
That was genius plug.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that. Okay. Well, yeah, I will start. I think I should have reread at least the ending of the first part of this
Mm,
story. But I think what I remember is that this couple moved into a new apartment, and there was like the neighbor left them some really weird and really specific instructions for basically how to survive in this
yeah,
apartment. Like,
so specific.
yeah, don't open the door. If somebody's knocking on the window, don't let them in, things like that. And
The
oh,
window
don't,
washer.
yeah, exactly. And then the big one was don't use the elevator between
Mm.
3 and 5 in the morning. And the writer's boyfriend used the elevator to go to his early shift at work, and he has never come home, presumably because he used the elevator during those hours. So
Poor guy. He didn't
I
know.
know. Yeah, let's get back into it. This is written by New to Town Jam in all caps.
Jam. You have to
And
say it like that because it's in all
exactly,
caps.
New to Town Jam.
Jam.
Exactly, put your back into it. But the title of the story is The Previous Tenant of My New Flat Left a Survival Guide. I think I'm going to need more than a guide. So much has happened in the last 24 hours. I'm so stressed, and I've barely slept since I discovered that Jamie was missing. It's starting to make me feel a little twitchy, but I thought I'd better update you guys. I was overwhelmed by all the suggestions you gave me and have taken more than a few of them on board. I'm definitely going to be getting a huge planter full of sage for the balcony, and I did spill a little salt in my doorway. I'm sorry to disappoint, but it didn't help at all. There's nothing I'm following quite like Mrs. Hemming's rules. I followed them to the letter so far, and lo and behold, I'm still alive. That's not to say it hasn't been tough, so I'll start from the beginning. I was going crazy, and a few hours after my last post, Jamie still hadn't returned. He had been gone for almost 24 hours. His work have called me multiple times. I don't know what to say, so I just keep ghosting the calls. I was bang in the middle of the danger time when I decided checking the lift had to be my first step, but I wasn't going to break that rule. I waited. I waited desperately for 3:34 to come. I guess the hour must end at 3:33. And I'm ashamed to say that when it did, I remained paralyzed to our sofa for almost half an hour before I found the nerve to leave the flat. It was 4:02 when I finally reached the lift. The lift in this building is old and rickety. It hasn't been updated in a very long time and has likely been here as long as the building. Its big, clunky buttons stared back at me as I glared at them, hoping for some sort of answer or clue. My heart thumped and I was overcome with a feeling of dread, but nothing came of any of it. It was hopeless. I stepped inside the lift, rode it up and down a few floors, and searched the entire perimeter with a phone torch for anything I could find. I found nothing. Jamie had completely disappeared. Sobbing and exhausted, I rode back to floor 7 and turned my key in flat 42, the perfect home that felt anything but home at the moment, or at that point. I sat at the cheap, flat pack dining table we'd managed to put together on move in day and cried, my hands shaking as I held my phone. I was flitting between reading all your comments and contemplating calling the police for an hour. But I decided to call my friend Georgia instead. I needed a real person here. Things were so crazy, I wasn't sure the police would be able to help with what little information I had. But I knew I needed to sound it out with someone. I'll spare you the details again, but I told her everything. She promised she'd be with me in the late morning. She had to take her younger brother to school. I waited anxiously, not before arming every room exactly as advised. Before I knew it, I looked at the clock and it was 8:23. I had around half an hour until the postman was due to show up, which I think the postman is the only person that you can trust in
Yeah,
this building,
interact
if I
with.
remember right.
Yeah.
Um, there is no way I was missing him today. I stood by the door looking vacantly at the wood like someone in a film who was possessed. The exhaustion was really setting in, but Jamie was all I could think of. Pure adrenaline was keeping me standing. At 8:52, I opened the door. The next 2 minutes were the longest of my life, but when I saw him, a wave of relief swept over my entire body. Right on cue, 8:54, the postman, Ian Flanders, stood in front of me, a smile that barely hid his concern covering his younger than expected face. He didn't look old enough to have been the postman for over 35 years, but I was too distracted by the answers that I needed from him to care. You must be the new tenant, he stated, but in a way that it sounded like a question. I struggled with my answers, so I got straight to the point. Mrs. Hemmings left me a note. She said to speak to you if. Can I come in, dear? I think we need to chat. Uh-oh. I ushered Ian in, my hands still shaking as I flapped them in
Oh,
the direction of the sofa,
that's a little
gesturing.
trusting,
I
no?
know. Yeah, how do we believe
I
him?
don't know.
She
I
hasn't
guess
met
because
him
she
yet.
said he's
Yeah.
okay, but what if he's
Yeah.
someone else pretending to be the postman?
Right. Oh, God. Scary. I haven't read this, so I'm excited.
There's layers. There's
Yeah.
layers to this ship.
Just trust no one at all.
No, exactly.
Okay, so she ushered him in, my hands still shaking as I flapped them in the direction of the sofa, gesturing for him to sit down. I shoved the now slightly crumpled note into his lap and waited. I'm glad Prue still thinks that highly of me. I miss that old girl, he said with a coy smile as he reached the end of the note. Can you help me or not? I had no time for his ego trip over a moved on neighbor. I can help, but I can't stop for long, so it'll have to be quick. I have walked these halls delivering the post for 40 years. I've seen it all. Everything Prue's mentioned and more. What do you need to know? He said. Ian was nothing like what I expected. The note made me feel like he was going to be a kindly old granddad type figure, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Postman Ian spoke with a thick city accent and wore a heavy gold chain around his tattooed neck. He had dyed his
Oh, he's an
graying
Italian
hair
mobster from New York.
apparently. Except I think that this person is British because they say lift and
Oh,
torch instead of
oh, you're
flashlight
right.
and
You're right.
elevator. So would
So
a
he's from
city
Liverpool, innit?
Yeah, exactly. That's side note, that video that you sent me of the guy as Harry Potter if he was like
Like
a
Scouse or whatever,
yeah.
like speaking Scouse. Yeah.
I've probably watched that 40 times.
It's
I'm
so
not joking.
funny. You guys, we'll share it on I'll put a note to myself to share it on
Yeah.
our like pod Instagram
Page. Yeah.
stories because it is So funny. For any of you Harry Potter people, there
Mm-hmm.
are all of those like videos of like Harry Potter if he were Arab, or Harry
Yeah.
Potter if he were whatever, and it's
Yeah.
like all these different categories, and this one's like Harry Potter if he were like from like inner city
Yeah.
London, and
Right.
it's like I can't even try to quote it. It's like so funny. It's I'll just botch it, so we'll share it. It's
It's
so funny.
yeah. He's like, I keep it on me, bruv, or whatever. For like the he's like waving his wand back here,
I keep it on me, bro. Keep it on me.
and oh yeah, then he's like, Chamber of Secrets, found it.
Found it.
Yeah, we have to share it because this won't be
Fabulous.
funny.
Killed it. It's so funny.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
favorite thing. So
Oh
that's
shit.
probably what Postman Ian sounds like.
Probably, yeah, which makes this whole story way
Yeah.
better.
All right, let's keep that in mind. So, okay, he dyed his graying hair boot polish black. His demeanor was thankfully non threatening, but extraordinarily cocky. He was the sort of man I imagined in a betting shop, rubbing his grubby hands on notes as he bragged over a win. Grubby
Jesus.
hands, yeah.
Grubby little meat hooks.
He didn't ask as he lit a cigarette in my living room. I didn't question it. We would usually smoke outside, but I wasn't going to argue over technicalities. I grabbed a bowl for the ash and lit one too. Let's start with the things in the lift. My boyfriend is missing, and he took the lift at 3:15 over 24 hours ago. We hadn't gotten this note yet. I haven't heard from him since, and I need to get him back. I barked at him as if the louder I spoke, the more I could influence his answer. The way I just read that, my intonation, it sounds like she actually barked. That was off. She,
I barked at him and then
she
said,
exactly. So she didn't bark. She just said forcefully.
she's like, ruff, ruff, ruff. An intimidation tactic.
Exactly. Okay, so she's barking. She needs an answer. Okay,
She
but
does.
nothing prepared me for what he said. His skin turned pale, and his harsh looking face became more sympathetic as he explained. Sorry,
Okay.
this is not funny. Okay, I'm just picturing or like hearing this accent
Go
now.
for
So
it.
he says, He's dead, love. Forget about him now. Only one.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's
Savage
so. I
postman.
know.
He's seen a lot of death in his
Yeah.
days, bruv.
He's dead, bruv, instead of love.
He's
He's
dead,
dead,
bruv.
bruv.
Let him go.
Forget about him now.
Forget about him now. You could be with me.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna
Okay,
need
sorry,
to
sorry, sorry.
excise that from my mind. I'm just gonna keep laughing. Okay, forget about him now. Only one person has ever come back from the lift at that time of night, and it was Prue herself. After witnessing it, those creatures ripping their victim apart, poor Prue was traumatized. Your boy is gone. Let go and follow the rules. He was blunt, but I could tell he felt sorry for me. There must be something I can do, I pleaded. There are things I've heard to bring back those who are lost, but I've never seen solid proof they work. It would be irresponsible of me to tell you to do something that might get you killed too. It's nice here, honest. Just get over him and live the status quo.
The love of your life. Just
Yeah.
get over him and live here in this
It's
apartment that took him.
easy.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, sorry if I sound harsh. I don't mean to, but you seem like a decent young lady, and I don't want to see you go too soon. I asked about what Mrs. Hemmings had seen in the lift, and if they were sure it happened to all who entered. I refused to believe that Jamie was dead. There had to be something I could do, and if I knew what I was dealing with, I could be better prepared. It was awful what happened. I wasn't there, but this is what I was told. Little Lila was such a cute kid. She used to open the door and give me a tip when I delivered the post. She was Prue's granddaughter. Lila was her son's little girl, and that night she was staying over for the first time. Prue finally felt confident that she could protect Lila from the strange things that happened here. She was wrong. Little Lila had a problem with sleepwalking, and she took a trip into the hallway at 1:30 in the morning. Prue took a little too long to notice the sound she had heard was the front door, and by the time she reached the lift, she saw the creatures dragging Lila's limbs away from her body.
Oh.
She tried to fight them, even killed one, but she couldn't save the little girl. I
Oof.
was hysterical, imagining Jamie's fate. What are the creatures? Have you ever actually seen them? I asked. No one really knows what they are. There's something to do with the building and all its quirks. No one's ever seen them elsewhere. We don't know where they come from, just that they're here. I've seen them a few times over the years, usually when new neighbors have left biscuits down for their cats and dogs, or haven't disposed of food waste properly. They're curious little creatures, mostly harmless out of the hours Prue warned you about, but if they're fed, they can become quite vicious looking for more food.
Hmm.
That's why you have to bin all your scraps, or hide them, or pack them, or whatever. Just don't leave them out and don't use the lift at those times, and you're safe from the creatures. They're a little smaller than humans, but they're a similar shape. They come with grotesque rodent like features and are far larger than any rodent could be. Like rodent children, I suppose.
Oh, come on.
um, they have two sharp rows of teeth per jaw and are consistently or constantly probably hungry.
Mm.
When they eat, they crunch down in a violent and disgusting way, dripping spittle everywhere. Prue said
Okay.
she could hear her granddaughter's bones shatter in those jaws. Yikes. He
Oh,
went pale at the thought of that, but continued. When they first arrived in the building, there were hundreds. It caused pandemonium amongst the residents. We lost the residents of more than 30 of the individual homes, but the residents fought back and managed to kill all but the strongest minority of them. How do so many people live in this place? Is
I
my
don't know.
question. The creatures left over were incredibly dangerous and seemingly impossible to eradicate, so the residents struck a deal that they will be left unharmed and allowed to live in the building in return for the residents' safety at all times. But if anyone wanders into the lift between 1:11 and 3:33 a.m., they are fair game. This time frame is the period the creatures are at their most frenzied, and restricting them to the lift was safer for all parties. God help anyone who encounters them during those hours. They've been here ever since, claimed lots of unsuspecting people avoiding the stairs, but nothing like when they first arrived. A few got put down for not holding up their end of the bargain, but we haven't had an incident outside the lift in years. Count yourself lucky you missed that crisis. Everything here is pretty peaceful right now. I'm sorry about your boyfriend. I really have to go. I'm late for my round. He scrawled his phone number on a bit of paper and handed it to me. Emergencies only. I don't like to be bothered. You
Oh.
can't go. The note said you would help me, I exclaimed. And I will, he snapped back, when there's something I can help with. I can't resurrect your boyfriend, and I don't like to be late delivering the post. I will see you soon, love. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe he was leaving me after the information overload and the small ray of hope he had lit inside me and then squashed. I'll call the police, I shouted, desperate to feel as if I was solving this somehow. You can try if you want, Ian sighed as he opened the door to leave. It just aggravates the creatures, and it isn't going to bring your boy back. Mr. Prentice hates it when the police come too. If you want to get any sleep in the next week, then I'd avoid it. Wait a week, report him missing, and learn to adapt to life here, or you'll be dead in days. And with that, he shut the door behind him. I opened it again. I had so much more to ask, but he was gone. No sign of him anywhere in the corridor. Maybe it was me losing my mind. I might be imagining all these things. But no matter how much I willed it, the note was still there, and Jamie still wasn't. Um, Georgia arrived not long after Ian had left. I, of course, asked if she had seen him in the corridor to try and affirm to myself that he was real, but she hadn't. She looked at me worried and held me as I sobbed and told her what the postman had said about Jamie and the creatures. I wasn't sure she believed me. Even as she read the note, she looked skeptical. If she was skeptical, I wouldn't have blamed her, but she had always been supportive. She sat with me for hours while I just sobbed, heartbroken. I was so conflicted as to what to do. It felt insane that I hadn't contacted anybody, but this note had turned out to be accurate so far, and if the postman was to be trusted, then I should wait. Georgia had been my best friend for many years. She stuck up for me when I was too scared to do it for myself, and had always been the brave one of the two of us. I felt safe around her. So after hours of crying and despairing at the way my life had changed in a matter of days, I finally decided to take a nap. Excuse me. It was early evening, and Georgia was watching some TV, just there for me if I needed her. Despite the deprivation, I struggled to fall asleep. I tried to imagine Jamie's arms around me, but it became a more painful reminder that they probably never will be again. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity of staring at the damp patch on the ceiling, I drifted off. About 3 hours ago, I woke up, staring at the goddamn damp patch on the ceiling, and could hear chatting in the living room. I jumped out of bed and walked towards it. Georgia was on the sofa with a middle aged looking woman, both nursing a cup of tea in the matching mugs that Jamie had got me as a move in present. My blood boiled, but it wasn't their fault. I cleared my throat to get their attention. Oh, Katie, this is Natalia. She lives upstairs. We got chatting, so I made her a cup of tea. I hope you don't mind. I looked at the dark haired woman on the sofa, drinking tea from my cup, and nodded. Georgia was a sociable idiot with no understanding of when to not be herself. I wasn't going to lament her for it right now. It was her coping. Of course. Hi, Natalia. What flat do you live in? I tried my very best to be polite. I would have to discuss not bringing people into my home mid tragedy with Georgia after she had left, but until then, I would be neighborly. Flat 71. It's so nice to meet you. You have a lovely home, Natalia responded. Her lips curled at the corners into a smile that wasn't replicated in her eyes or the rest of her facial expression.
Oh, God.
She looked at me smugly, with full knowledge that I was aware of the implications of what she had just said. The rules, the flat number. Every now and again, someone will knock at your door claiming to live in one of these flats and ask to borrow some sugar. They will seem entirely average, but you must shut and lock the door immediately. I installed 2 extra security bolts to avoid these fuckers. I don't like to swear at my age, but they really are fuckers. So that was the rule that Prue had given her. Prue's warning echoed in my mind, and I couldn't take my eyes off Natalia. Something really was off about her. I looked at Georgia sat on the sofa next to her, and I noticed her sweating. Anyone in the UK knows that it's been hot for a few days, but this was beyond just the ambient temperature. Her entire body was dripping. Suddenly, she began to pant. Natalia's eyes were locked to mine, just like the window cleaner's had been. Nothing happened before with the cleaner, except this time the rule had been broken. She was already in the flat.
God.
Georgia started to scream as her skin blistered and charred. Her hair fell away from her scalp as the skin flaked and melted away from every inch of her. She was being she was being burned alive without a flame in sight. Yikes.
What?
Oh god. Okay.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
That's so dark.
Yeah, it's taking a turn. Okay. So she scratched frantically at her own melting face, digging into the exposed raw flesh. The sound a person makes when they burn alive is like no other. That will never leave me. Oh god.
And it's her best friend?
Yeah,
What the
now
fuck?
I know. And
Like
yeah,
losing everyone close to her?
right. How could you ever have anyone come over? Like
I mean, you would. How could you
she's
survive? Like, how
right.
would you live?
Yeah, you wouldn't. I don't know. I'm so curious what she's going to do. Um okay, I screamed and screamed, but no one came to my door. I tried to grab my phone to call postman Ian, but the wooden surface I had set it down on burned my fingers to the touch and forced me to recoil. She was going to set the whole flat alight. My actions needed to be quicker than a phone call. I grabbed hold of the large knife I had set down on the side earlier when weaponizing. The handle blistered my fingers instantly, but I didn't care. I needed to get her out now and help Georgia if I could. I ran towards the dark haired lady, sweat dripping from my brow the closer I got, and plunged the knife into Natalia's throat. She gripped it and fell to the floor. She didn't bleed like a normal human. Her insides were black. She was still moving, and I figured it probably wouldn't be long before she stood right back up and tried again. So I dragged her into the hallway, ready to bolt the door. Yikes. As we reached the entrance of the corridor, one of the cats was waiting, hissing at her semi conscious body. I caught her eyes fixate on it as I dumped. Sorry, hang on. I just got a chat. I should have turned my work stuff off. um, I caught her eyes fixate on it as I dumped her on the floor. I grabbed the cat, pulled him inside, wincing as its skin caused more burns up my lower arms, shut the door, and watched through the peephole. She got up and held her hand to the wound, cauterizing it, and walking off towards the lift, as if she hadn't been injured at all. Demon.
Also, how? Like, so the cat was also super hot.
I guess. She was like gonna burn the whole
Oh,
building down.
Jesus.
Yeah, okay. I dropped the cat by that point, but every bit of naked skin it had touched throbbed and burned for at least an hour. Georgia hadn't been as lucky as Natalia with injury recovery. I anonymously called an ambulance for her. I couldn't believe it, but she was still breathing. She was
Oh my god.
badly burned, and her life would not be the same again, but she was alive, and for that I was grateful. It sounds awful, but I left her at the park across the road from the building, with no phone or ID. She's my best friend, and I want to be there, but if I own up to involvement in injuries that bad, they'll suspect me, and I'll lose the already slim chance that Jamie might be savable. It doesn't mean I don't care about Georgia, but she's alive. I won't believe Jamie isn't until I see it. So now I'm alone again in the flat, conflicted about what to do. I want to leave so badly, but this was mine and Jamie's first home together. If he's alive and I can save him, then I want it to be here for him to come back to. And if he's dead and the postman is right, then I don't know if I can leave his memory behind. There's only one person I think could help me right now. So tonight,
Prue.
yep. So tonight, I'm going to do some research, hunt down an address, and tomorrow morning, I'm going to visit Prudence Hemmings. And that's the end of part 2.
I feel like this girl really needs to like readjust her priorities,
Yeah.
but okay.
It's,
She's like leaving Georgia in the park alone for the
yeah.
ambulance to
Yeah.
find. How'd she get
Right.
her down there? She's covered in burns.
Right. Don't ask questions.
Oh, right.
I don't
Totally.
know.
Yeah, my bad, my bad.
Yeah, how would you do that? It would
You
be
tossed her out the window.
right. So insanely painful for her.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god,
Jesus.
the window washer helped.
Jesus.
But wow. Yeah, I think it's like she's getting sucked into this place or something. Like, why
Yeah.
are you
Yeah,
not
it's like it has
freaking out
sway.
more? Yeah,
Yeah, it has like sway
but
over you.
right. Come on,
Interesting. Well, I'm
Katie.
excited for the next one. Come on,
Oh
Katie.
yeah.
Um, well, I have two like sibling focused ones.
Yeah.
One is a standalone, and one is the first in a series. We'll start with the standalone because I'll revisit the series in future
Okay.
episodes.
Ooh,
So,
I'm
totally
excited.
different vibes from
Okay.
yours and totally different vibes from each other.
Yeah.
This one is from Severe Actuary 9562. And this was posted 19 hours ago. So
Oh
this one
wow.
is really, really new.
Fresh.
And
Okay.
it popped up. I get notifications about certain subreddits, and this one
Hmm.
came up, and I was like, oh, from No Sleep. And
Oh,
it's
I'm
very good.
excited. Okay, cool.
So it's called My Younger Brother and His Friends Are Following This Trend.
Uh-oh.
I have no idea what's going on with my younger brother and his friends. As I got older, I sort of lost touch with some of the trends, and I know every generation has its fads, but I'm concerned. I'm currently visiting family for Thanksgiving. I rarely see them, so I don't always know what's going on. As soon as I saw my little brother, though, I knew something was off with him. He's 13 now and is starting to go through his teenager phase. He's usually very respectful, and when I see him, he always asks about my work and what it's like living in a big city. This time, he just said hi and nodded and went to his room. I asked my mom if anything had happened or if anything was wrong with him, but she said he was fine. His grades were good. He had a group of friends that didn't get into trouble. I walked up to his door and was about to knock, but I thought I heard something, so I listened in, but then it stopped and it was silent. I lightly knocked on the door. Hey, dude, how's it going? Can I come in? Yes, he said plainly. I talked to him for a few minutes to see if anything was going on, and he kept saying everything was fine and that he was just, quote, tired or something. I thought I would give him his space and left him alone. At dinner, he seemed okay, was talking normally to mom and dad, and seemed more aware than earlier. I figured that he must have just been tired then, at least that was until a few days later. My mom said he was having friends over and that her and my dad were going out, so just to keep an eye on them. Around 8 or so, I went downstairs to check in on them, but when I got downstairs, I was shocked. I figured they'd be playing video games or a board game or watching a movie, but when I got downstairs, I literally gasped. They were all just standing there in these weird poses, staring at the TV. At
Oh.
first, the screen was off, but then I took another glance and saw in the corner it said Mr. Trouble's Challenge.
Oh god.
Motionless, the five of them, and it seemed like they didn't even notice me. I tried calling to them, hey guys, guys, and then I shouted a bit, guys, snap out of it for a second, will you? They stood motionless, and at that point I was a little freaked out, so I walked over to the computer and clicked off the video. Bro,
Mm.
you ruined it, my brother shouted angrily. Why are you just standing there like some freaks? And ignoring your older brother isn't cool, bud. Ah, it's the Mr. Troubles challenge. You're not supposed to move. You don't even get it. His friends said nothing, but they were sat on the couch, clearly upset as well. Oh, okay. Well, sorry then, but if I ask you something, I need an answer, kiddo. Basic respect, right? Here, let me restart it. You guys can try again, I said, trying to fix what I'd done. No, it's too late. Please, go away. He was clearly mad. He had never acted like this before. I brought it up to my mom and asked if she knew anything about Mr. Troubles. She said she had no clue, but dad said that when he had noticed the boys playing, my dad said he had noticed the boys playing similar games. Last week, he said he saw them staring at a blank screen, but didn't have time to say anything and forgot to ask about it later. My mom said that the boys were at the park and asked if I could pick them up. So this is another day. I agreed and drove over to the local park. And when I got there, I couldn't believe it. There was my brother and his friends, but there were also 20 other kids or so standing in a circle, staring at each other in
Oh.
silence.
What?
Not
They're like
again.
zombies.
Yeah, not again, I thought. They were all fixed on the center of the circle. I waved my arms at my brother in spite of how weird and creepy I thought their game was. I didn't want to upset him again, but he gave no response. I started to get frustrated. After a few minutes of attempting to get his attention, I went over to him and lightly grabbed his arm and tried to pull him aside. As soon as the circle broke, all the kids turned 180 degrees and started running in straight lines. What the? I said out loud. What are you guys doing out here? It's like 0 degrees right now. You should be moving around. Is this that Mr. Troubles thing again? Tell me what this weird game is about. I was somewhat angry at the stupidity of it, but watching the kids run off like that in unison honestly gave me the shivers thinking about it. You don't get it. Just stop ruining the time I have with my friends. And then he shook free and ran towards the car. He ignored me the whole way home and was basically silent at dinner. I told my mom and dad what had happened, and they said it was probably just some new fad. I told them maybe so, but maybe so. I don't know why I said it like that. I told them maybe so, but either way, this seemed exceptionally ridiculous as far as fads go. What kind of fad is just standing motionless in silence? And today, we woke up in a panic. My mom said my brother was gone, and she had gotten several calls from other parents asking if they had seen their children. I looked through my brother's belongings but found nothing. That was until I saw his journal. I wouldn't
Uh-oh.
have read it normally, but given the circumstance, I did. All it said on every page was, "Today I watched Mr. Troubles. I won." I dropped the book in horror. What was this Mr. Troubles really, and why was my brother seemingly so obsessed with him? Were all the kids like this? I quickly opened my phone and searched for the channel. Zero results. It made no sense.
Whoa.
I went downstairs and logged into the family laptop that the boys were using earlier, and it was signed into my brother's account. I typed in the name of the account again, Mr. Troubles. Who was this guy? I searched for the video they were watching that day and gasped. It was different. It was no longer a blank screen. It showed 5 figures doing the strange poses that my brother and his friends were doing. Why could I see it now? I clicked back on the channel and looked at the latest video and immediately called 911. Quote, "Children of enter my parents' town. Mr. Troubles is doing a meet and greet. Time for another game." The video
Oh.
only showed longitude and latitude coordinates, but when I looked it up, it was in the middle of nowhere in the woods. I
Oh
told the
no.
police, yeah, I told the police where I suspected the kids had went and got in my car and put my foot on the gas. When I got to the location, I saw random teens walking along the highway, just straggling along. The police were already there, and I called out for my brother for the next hour and a half. I saw some kids I recognized from that day at the park, and they were just staring at trees blankly. Eventually, I got a text. My brother was home. We spent hours asking him what he was doing there and who was Mr. Troubles. He barely said anything. He just kept nodding or shaking his head. And at one point my mom started crying. He wasn't completely mute or anything, but he just gave these vague, careless answers. "Show some respect. What's wrong with you?" My dad yelled at him, hammering the table and walking out of the room. That was hours ago now. My brother went back into his room and I went to check on him. I went to knock on his door, but just like before, I heard a sound. I listened more closely than before, and it was my brother, mumbling under his breath. "Today I watched Mr. Troubles. I won. Today I watched Mr. Troubles. I won. Today I watched Mr. Troubles. I won." He was saying it repeatedly like it was some kind of chant. I stepped back, almost knocking a photo off a table in the hall, my jaw hanging open. What had happened to my brother?
Ew. Is that the end?
That's the end.
No.
No.
Who's Mr.
I
Troubles?
I suspect people will
Demand.
demand a part two.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a
Ooh,
good one.
that
I
is so
like the
scary.
premise.
Yeah,
It's so scary.
I can just
So
picture
scary.
that. Like,
I know, right?
what kind of poses are they doing? Like,
Like,
hanging. Yeah, creepy. And just staring. That is so
just
scary.
that's so scary. Walking in
Yeah.
on kids doing that?
No.
Fuck that, dude.
No way.
Hell
Yikes.
no. Okay,
Okay.
on to the next.
Yes.
This one is from Beardify, also from No Sleep, and it is called "My Sister Talks to Herself at Night," part
Ugh.
one.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I talk in
Okay.
my sleep. I don't even want to know what I'm saying.
Demonic shit, probably.
Yeah.
Um, okay. The wall between my sister Maya's room and mine is paper thin. If it wasn't, I would never have found out, and I'd be safer and happier and wouldn't be huddled over my computer screen in the dark, terrified of what's happening on the other side of the wall. Things didn't always used to be this way. We used to live in a big old house with a pear tree out front and plenty of space for everyone. Instead of the basement apartment the four of us are crammed into now, but that was before Maya got sick. Back then, I thought that nothing could happen. Nothing bad could happen to Maya. She was just too perfect. My sister was one of those fit, tanned, hyper friendly girls who seemed able to participate in every sport and social event without ever running out of energy. She always seemed to know the right thing to say or wear, and she bore the burden of our immigrant parents' ridiculously high expectations with a smile. I, on the other hand, was the opposite of all of those things. But as long as Maya was around, it didn't matter. No matter how discouraged or unloved I felt, I was always sure that somehow my older sister would take care of it. So when Maya first got sick, we all thought she'd be better in a week. But the week became a month, and the month stretched on into years. My parents dug our family into a pit of debt trying to save their golden child. You'll see, my mother would soothe my father when he stared incredulous at the pile of bills on the kitchen table. It'll all be worth it when we get our Maya back. And that was 6 years ago. And since then, my sister's only gotten worse. It started as just a little tiredness, a little lightheadedness. The way Maya's smile faded faster than it had before. As always, my sister tried to be the strong one, but the truth was that Maya was becoming weaker every day. There wasn't any one cause that the doctors could diagnose or treat. My sister was just less, like her body had an imperceptible leak from which her spirit was slowly draining. Now my sister is 23 and she can no longer eat or use the bathroom without help. Of course, she can't walk or speak either, or so I thought until late last night. I woke to the creaking of the floor in my sister's room. At first, I thought my father or mother was helping her out of bed, but then I heard something I hadn't heard in 7 years, something that chilled my blood. I heard my sister's voice through the wall. If I could do anything, what would it be? Maya used to have a loud, almost aggressive way of talking, but now her words came out in a dry rasp that sounded horribly close to my ear. Maya? I whispered back, but I don't think she heard me. She just kept on talking. If I could do anything, I think I'd walk down the street and toss my hair. I'd smile at a guy and watch his face light up. That's what I'd do first. Then I'd go shopping and buy a whole new wardrobe for all the parties my friends would host to welcome me back. Sometimes Maya would pause as though someone else were there in the room with her and they were sharing a conversation, but that was impossible. The whole family was already in bed. Maybe my sister's just lonely, I thought, as the strange one sided conversation went on. I started spending more time with Maya than I usually did, hoping that talking to her a little more would help. I spent an hour or two in my sister's room every day doing homework or reading, but I hardly ever said more than a few words to her. Maya had stopped speaking to us years ago, yet here she was, talking to herself in the middle of the night. It was unnerving, to say the least. The next day, I made a point to talk to Maya more than just the usual, "How are you, sis?" and "Love you lots." I described my day, I told her a stupid joke I'd heard at university, and asked her opinion about what outfit I should buy. The truth was, I had no intention of going shopping anytime soon. I just thought it might lift her spirits, but Maya stayed silent as always. The silence was one of the things that made it so hard to stay in Maya's room for any length of time. There's no television, no radio, not even the ticking of a clock. We'd offered my sister all of those things, but she had just waved them away with a feeble gesture of her hand. There isn't much light either. Maya keeps the blinds closed, and the only other illumination she'll tolerate comes from a tiny bedside lamp. So, between the dim light and the fact that nothing in the room has changed in the past 6 years, sitting by my sister's side or bedside feels like being inside some kind of creepy time capsule. Her lacrosse uniform, prom dress, and massive collection of jeans all still hang in the closet as though they're waiting for her to get out of bed and slip them on again. Posters of her favorite bands and actors circa 2016 stare unblinkingly down at where Maya lays, eyes shut, barely breathing. The books she used to read to me are still stacked in her bookshelves, but now I read them to her. The eeriest thing about Maya's room, though, is the fancy oval mirror hanging on the wall across from her bed. She used to say that putting her makeup on with it made her feel like a movie star, but I don't see how. Maybe it's just the gloomy light, but there's something off about how reflections look in that old mirror. Pale as she is, Maya practically glows in the dusky looking glass. I look like a gray, insignificant shadow beside her, and the rest of the room fades away into darkness. Sometimes, though, I'd swear that I see something moving in there out of the corner of my eye.
Hmm.
And that's usually when I leave Maya's room. I tell myself I'm tired, that the bad illumination is straining my eyes, or that my sister needs rest. But the truth is, I'm afraid of what might happen next. My parents and I have tried to change the layout of Maya's room and take down that awful mirror, but my sister won't have it. And when she reaches out weakly, begging us wordlessly to leave things how they are, how could we possibly reject her wishes? My friends are always jealous of me, Maya rasped through my wall on the second night, jolting me awake. It used to bother me, but now I miss it. I mean, look at me now. Who would ever want to be me? I wish I could go out again. Wish my old friends would see me dancing and be too stunned to speak. My muscles tensed up with fear as Maya whispered to the darkness about her friends, going on about petty feuds and jealousies that had surely been long forgotten by everyone else involved. I couldn't tell which was more frightening, the possibility that my sister was hiding her ability to speak for some reason, or the thought that someone else who sounded like her was talking on the other side of the wall at night. If I went into my sister's room now, I wondered in horror, what would I see? As much as they disturbed me, my sister's midnight rants also gave me an idea about how I might be able to help her. What if I looked up one of her old crew and asked them to visit her? I decided to start making calls the very next day, but only one of Maya's friends picked up. And the past 6 years hadn't been kind to Leslie McComb. From stalking her on social media, I knew that she'd gotten pregnant by her high school boyfriend, had him locked up after a domestic dispute, and started a GoFundMe to pay for her terrier's life saving surgery, or so she claimed. Yeah, Leslie's voice when she answered the phone was so smoke choked and aggressive that I almost hung up, but I had Maya to consider. Hey, Leslie, you might not remember me, but maybe you remember my older sister, Maya? What? Who's this? The crunching of Cheetos in the receiver was so loud I had to hold my phone away from my head. Oh, you mean Maya from high school? The girl with that freaky disease?
Oh.
My hands clenched into fists. So now my sister, who'd been the best goalie in the county, had one of the highest GPAs in her class, and had always been there when her friends, like Leslie, needed a shoulder to cry on, was suddenly the girl with that freaky disease. I'm talking about Maya Baridzi. Maya's gotten a lot worse since high school, Leslie. She can't talk and she barely leaves her bedroom. I was hoping, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, maybe you could come by and see her? See her? Pfft, Leslie scoffed. I saw her just last night at the Red Room.
Oh.
Damn, your sister's got some moves. I barely recognized her. I sat in stunned silence, sure that I'd misheard. The Red Room was a sketchy dance club on the other side of town, and my sister could barely leave her bed. What on earth was going on? Are you sure that was Maya who you saw? I finally stammered. Yeah, she's there like every night. I think you're mistaking my sister for someone else. Maya is, look, your big sis held my hair back while I puked in an ice cream carton at Billy Seville's party. We went to that not so secret swimming spot down by the quarry every summer. There isn't a chance that I wouldn't recognize Maya. In fact, Leslie paused, angry now. I think it's safe to say that I know Maya better than you ever will. I hung up before I could say any of the words that were burning in my chest. I couldn't risk alienating Leslie. Rude as she was, if what she'd said was true, I might need her help later. And as much as I hated clubs, dancing, and everything to do with them, it looked like I was going to the Red Room.
No. Let's just read part two now.
No, we cannot. We cannot.
What is happening?
I'll
Is
read both
she
the second and third and final parts of the series in our next holiday episode.
okay? That sounds good. That is another really good one. Is she like
Right?
traveling through the mirror or something?
I
I
don't
guess we'll
know.
see.
I guess we'll see.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah, me too. So good. I love it.
Yeah. And happy
Um,
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Be grateful that you don't have a weird mirror related disease.
Yes. Or that you don't live in
Um,
a weird apartment
oh my
where you
God,
have to follow
really
all
scary
these rules.
apartment
Yeah.
that kills your boyfriend and almost your best friend.
Yeah.
Would hate that.
Yep.
0 out of 10 would not recommend.
Yes. Agreed.
Um, Thanks for listening. We
Yes.
will see y'all next week. We only have one more episode before our hiatus, our holiday hiatus, which is going to be a month
Yay.
from the first week of December to the first week of January. So we'll be back on January 5th.
5th.
But you
Mm-hmm.
have one more episode from us
Woohoo.
before then.
Mm-hmm.
So buckle up, babies. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Can't wait. Send us your scary stories at
Mm-hmm.
girlsgonespooky@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, until next week, stay
Stay
spooky.
spooky. Bye.
Bye.